Now, the story hit me personally because I don't have a relationship with my mother, and my relationship with my father is very strained.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was on American Idol, he was selling some of my things, and it was like a big
That's
deal.
so hurtful. Yeah.
The problem is, what happens when big life events like marriage, like having a child, and then most devastatingly, a death happen, and you've been not speaking to a family member, particularly your parents.
Totally. Well, I mean, I think first I just want to acknowledge that, you know, it's we don't want to forego our health and well-being just to stay in a toxic or manipulative relationship, right? Or a relationship with someone who's not respecting our boundaries, like selling our stuff, not respecting the person that we're with, right? It's not our responsibility to make other people feel more comfortable with that. So we need to set certain boundaries and limits, and sometimes that means, you know, very little or no contact.
I think my issue is that people always say it's different with your parents. It's your parents.
Right.
It's not
There's
your
this
brother,
family
your
societal
sister.
norm.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a lot of pressure.
Do you think it does make it different, or can you cut your parents off?
I think you absolutely can. I think this is really important for LGBTQ people as well, right? It's not our jobs to make other people, parents included, feel more comfortable with their homophobia, biphobia, transphobia. It's our job to stand up for who we are in our community. And sometimes that means, you know, doing due diligence, trying to get them to come along, spending the time that it takes to have those relationships and
James,
set boundaries.
I'm being a little probably silent. I actually had a therapy session yesterday at 2, and we were talking about exactly this.
Right.
My mom and I have a fantastic relationship, but there are some boundaries that have had to be reset in recent years for both of us to be happier and to build a relationship that's healthier as adults than what we had as kids. And part of that for me has been not flying home to my little town in Ohio quite as often. And that was a difficult adjustment for my mom and myself.
Absolutely.
But for me, I'm tired of going into a space where there is such toxicity and where I feel like I have to always defend myself and explain myself and my sexuality to a hometown that I love, but that just isn't there. So when it comes to setting boundaries, healthy boundaries with maybe a family member, what's the best advice you could give?
Well, first, notice any kind of physical sensations that come up for you. If there's like heart racing or flushing red or discomfort, or like you just something feels off, right? First, we need to acknowledge what's going on, be aware of what's happening for us internally. And that's a cue for us to step up, to say, hey, that didn't feel good, or, you know, this is what I need in our relationship. I need you to sort of get these types of things. But I think part of what we're talking about here is that there's so much societal pressure that family's supposed to, you know, you're supposed to bend over backwards, even at your own expense.
Shoulder it no matter at what cost.
Right?
Yeah.
At the cost of our own mental health and well-being sometimes.
Well, it's interesting because I watch my sister-in-law, and this could be a different conversation. She has children now, but she feels guilty if during the holidays she doesn't make it to both sets of grandparents' houses.
So much
and
pressure.
Then she's got my brother's aunt and uncle that we like to see. And so she like runs herself ragged. And I think in 2020, it's the guilt that's killing people. Again, you know, it's interesting because I got a phone call that my mom isn't doing well currently. She was in the hospital. And so it brought up these feelings. Do I call? Like, we haven't spoken in 5 years. What do you do, and how do you still continue keeping those boundaries? It's the guilt we have to get over.
It's so tough. I've been there myself. You know, I've been estranged from my family at certain times. It sort of cycles through, and it really depends on the context, right? There's certain circumstances where you might want to reach out or send some flowers or have a conversation or try and reconcile. Sometimes when people are facing their own mortality, they're more willing to be vulnerable, to take responsibility, and sometimes not, right? So it really depends on those circumstances.
And for anybody who might be going through a similar situation where maybe either you're the parents, in this case, Kobe's parents, who are now mourning the loss of a son who was estranged, or maybe you've lost a family member who you've been estranged from, what sort of advice could you give to people going through that right now?
I would say be really, really kind with yourself. You know, when there's so much societal norms, expectations, and the shame that comes with that, sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. So it's really, really important to just acknowledge the facts as they are, right? Not all families are healthy. Not all families are good to stay in contact with. Some are toxic. Some are just not good for us, you know?
Licensed in family, marriage, and family therapist, James Guay. Thank you so much, as always.
Absolutely.
Your advice is so heard, and we need you, so thank you so much.
I love everything about your vibe. Your entire energy is just so kind.
Thank you. Appreciate it.